Good morning. Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and our weekly Sport Talk program. Today we're going to talk about the NCAA basketball tournaments, both men's and women's, as we're at the point now where there's 16 teams left in each tournament. With me today is Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our chair of sports coaching, and Mr. Ben Billman, one of our teaching assistants. And we brought these two guys on today because they both have a lot of experience playing and coaching basketball. My name is Steve Butler, and I'm your host, and I'm just here to guide these two experts through the process. Well, you know, one of the things that happened last weekend in round one, especially on Friday, was a bunch of craziness. Friday was the first day ever that a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 seed all won in the same day. So it kind of settled down over the weekend a little bit, where, you know, two of the regions have one of the regions has 1, 2, 3, and 4, and another region has 1, 2, 3, and 5. So kind of went to chalk. And Ben and I were talking about this morning. We don't see 4, 5, 8, and 9 as upsets. So five being there instead of 4 isn't really that big of a deal. So what we'd like to do today is talk a little bit about, and of course the other big thing I forgot to mention, the biggest story probably of the first round, of the first 2 rounds, is the fact that there's 6 ACC teams still in the tournament, 6 out of 16, which is an all-time record. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to go through the games in the order they're being played. And first game is at 6:10 Eastern time tomorrow night, and we're gonna make some predictions. We're only going to get to our final 4. We're going to have a special show next week because Coach Matthew Graves of the University of South Alabama, who will be here. And Ben, why don't you tell that story about the unique perspective he has about the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, and we'll ask him about this next week as well. But when he was an assistant coach at Butler University, he had the opportunity to coach against Steph Curry's Davidson team, Klay Thompson's Washington State team, and Draymond Green's Michigan State team. Not only did he play all 3, but he beat all 3. So we'll have to ask him about that experience next week.
Yeah, he didn't have to play them all 3 at the same time.
No.
Okay, so let's start. The first game tomorrow night is the 2 seed Villanova against the 3 seed Miami. Who do you like, Ben?
I'm going to go with Miami. I like Jim Larrañaga as a coach. He's got a lot of seniors on that squad. Villanova's a tough team, but I think Miami's got the edge at that one.
I'm going to have to disagree on that one. I'm going to take Villanova. I just think they're hungry. I do agree. I think Larrañaga is a great coach, but, you know, all good things have to come to an end, and I think that their road's going to stop.
For those of you who don't remember, Jim Larrañaga took George Mason to the Final Four a few years ago. I like Miami, too, in that one. So 2 of us like Miami. The second game tomorrow night, tipping off at 6:37, is Texas A&M, the 3 seed, versus Oklahoma, the 2 seed. Brett, who do you like in that game?
Well, if I pick against Oklahoma, my wife will kill me. She's an Oklahoma grad, so.
And we don't want you to get killed. So
right. But I
also
also think that they're playing as well as anybody right now. I think I made the comment that somebody yesterday, might have been Dr. Spradley, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the whole thing as well as they're playing right now.
What's their leading scorer's name?
Buddy Hield.
Buddy Hield.
Yeah.
He's got 63 points in the first 2 games to lead all the scores so far.
He was virtually non-existent in the first half, and then in the second half just went off and ended up with 36 or something like that.
Who do you like in that game, Ben?
Well, it should be Oklahoma versus Northern Iowa, but Northern Iowa imploded in their game.
Yes.
I'm going Oklahoma. Buddy Hield, Player of the Year.
I like Oklahoma as well. The third game tomorrow night is the 1 seed Kansas versus the 5 seed Maryland, and that game's at 8:40. Ben, who do you like in that game?
I think talent-wise, that's a pretty close matchup, but Kansas has been so consistent, especially since the start of the Big 12 season. I would be shocked if they don't make the Elite 8.
Kansas as well.
Kansas. And the final game tomorrow night, for those of us who have to stay up late to watch it, is Oregon, the 1 seed, versus Duke, the 4 seed. Brett, who do you like in that game?
You know what? This is a tough one for me. I mean, I think Oregon's talented, but there's just something about Mike Krzyzewski that he finds a way, even though they, you know, everybody's going to say they only have 6 guys, they only have this scholarship, but I think it's going to be a closer game than what everybody thinks. And I think when it comes down to it, the Duke kids know how to win, and I think Duke's going to win.
Okay, that's fair. I actually like Oregon in that game, Ben.
I'm with Dr. Simmermacher. Again, somehow Coach K is able to get his team geared up for March, He's got Grayson Allen, who is very underrated in my opinion, and Brandon Ingram, who's just a stud freshman.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know Oregon's talented, but they showed signs of struggle against St. Joe's in the second round, and that might catch up to him against such a quality team. And they won the championship last year. They still have a lot of players back from that team. So
Plus, we know they'll get all the calls. There are some folks now, some of the experts are starting to say, depending on how the ping pong balls fall in the NBA draft, there are some teams that will probably take Ingram over Ben Simmons.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
Ben Simmons has been the #1 player all year, but Ingram's come on late in
I
the
can see
season.
that.
Okay, let's just skip down to Saturday. We'll have the Villanova-Miami winner versus the Kansas-Maryland winner, and the Oregon-Duke winner versus the A&M-Oklahoma winner. So, Brett, which of those teams do you like to go to the Final Four?
I think Kansas will advance, and I think Oklahoma will advance.
I agree. I think it's going to be a Big 12 matchup in the Final Four.
Yeah, that'll be a rematch of the Big 12 championship game.
Mhm.
Or no, West Virginia made the.
Oh, that's right,
championship.
West Virginia beat.
The Buddy Hield shot was from
Right,
half
right.
court,
That's
was
right.
ruled off.
It's
so.
kind of like the shot Pete Maravich made in the end of the movie. And did you ever see that movie Pistol?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he made that shot at the end, and it was a little bit too late. Okay, so that gets us with Kansas and Oklahoma to the final. I think we all three had Kansas and
Yep.
Oklahoma, right?
We did.
To the Final Four. Okay, Friday the first game is Virginia versus Iowa State. Virginia is the 1 seed, Iowa State the 4. Who do you like, Ben?
Virginia. They've been consistent all season.
I agree. Defensively, they're just probably one of the best teams in the country defensively, and I just don't think Iowa State has enough offensive power to beat them.
I like Virginia as well. And I saw an interesting stat this morning on ESPN. Iowa State's played the #1 seed three times in history, and every time they've lost, and every time the team they lost to has gone on to win the national championship.
Hmm.
So if you guys pick Virginia to win that game, we don't need to talk about it anymore, right? Okay, the second game Friday night is the 6 seed Notre Dame at the 7 seed Wisconsin. Who do you like, Brett?
This is a tough one for me. I really think Notre Dame's going to win the game, though. But here again, Wisconsin's got the experience. They proved it in the game prior to with the last-second shot by Bronson.
Yeah.
And
He really made 2 last-second shots.
Yeah,
One with like
I mean,
10
yeah.
seconds left and one at the buzzer.
so they've got some clutch players back from last year's Final Four team and final game, and but I just think Notre Dame's just going to have a little bit more firepower.
Did you see the video they showed of Frank Kaminsky watching the end of the Wisconsin game?
No, I haven't seen
It was
that.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, rolling around
He
on the
took off
floor.
running, kind of slid on the floor, and he got back up and running down the thing.
I didn't see
And
that.
he had a really good game last night.
Did he?
Yeah, he was playing, and somebody was injured, and he started, scored 10 points in the first quarter. I believe he's playing for the Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the second game on, or I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you who you like.
Wisconsin. The experience is still there from last year.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
Wisconsin too. The third game is an interesting one because we have an 11 seed Gonzaga versus a 10 seed Syracuse. Who do you like in that game, Ben?
I'm going Gonzaga. I like Kyle Wiltshire and DeMontis Sabonis. Those two around the basket are nearly unstoppable. I mean, Syracuse plays a great zone defense. I give the slight edge to Gonzaga.
I'm going to go with Syracuse. I just think, here again, Jim Boeheim, he finds a way too. His guys, Benajay and some of those guys, if they get hot, they're pretty good. I just think, but I do like Gonzaga as well.
Yeah.
But
I like Gonzaga in this game for one reason. That little number next to their name should be a 5 instead of an 11. I don't know what the heck they were thinking about when they did that. And the last game of this round is #1 North Carolina versus #5 Indiana. And Ben's a diehard Hoosier fan, so I'm not even going to ask him who he's picking. Who do you like?
I think this is going to be a good game, but I just think North Carolina's going to win it late. I just think they have too much talent. But Indiana, it wouldn't surprise me if Indiana beat them because, I actually picked them. I know I gave Ben some grief and told him Kentucky was going to beat them, but and I had Indiana picked to get where they are now, but then I had North Carolina beaten.
Yeah, I like North Carolina in that game. And then, so on Sunday, it'll be the North Carolina Indiana winner versus the Notre Dame Wisconsin winner, and the Virginia Iowa State winner versus the Gonzaga Syracuse winner. Who do you guys like going to the Final Four from that side?
I like North Carolina and Virginia.
I'm going Indiana, obviously, and Virginia as well.
Yeah, I've got North Carolina and Virginia too, which that is a rematch of the ACC championship
Right.
game.
Yeah.
So the way we have, two of us have it anyway, and Ben really thinks North Carolina's going to win. He's just picking Indiana with his heart.
I really do. I think North Carolina's length and
So we
rebounding
could
ability.
we could have a Big 12 semifinal and an ACC semifinal. Okay, so let's go over to the women's side real quick. I think we all agree that it's going to be one seeds, maybe 1-2 seed can break through. But if you look at the way all the 1 seeds played last week, and by the way, right now, as we sit here today, the 4 1 seeds have a combined record of 134-3 this year, and 2 of the teams, Notre Dame is 33-1, and South Carolina is 33-1, and the only loss was to UConn.
We need to not say any more. Just UConn.
Baylor did lose to, I believe it was Oklahoma State during the season.
And when Sarah and I and Sandy did that show, when
Yeah.
you were somewhere, and Ohio State played them early in the season. They were 6th in the country. UConn was number 1. They beat them by like 35.
Yeah.
I had to run some errands Saturday, and I got home at the end of the first quarter. It was 41-4, and then they played my son's team in the second round and spanked them pretty well. Anyway, okay, so let's just do it this way. Do you see any number 1 seeds not going through to the Final Four?
The only one I don't have, and this is the lowest 1 seed, which is Baylor, and the highest 2 seed, Oregon State. I'm going to pick Oregon State in that matchup. I think the Pac-12 is a really good conference, and I would hate to see the Pac-12 get left out of the Final Four. So I'm going to pick Oregon State as a 2 seed, but I still have South Carolina, Notre Dame, and UConn, all number 1 seeds. So basically chalk, other than the 5th best team over the 4th best team.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in my beloved Buckeyes over South Carolina.
All right.
They've played well all year, all season. They're a 3 seed, but
Notre Dame, I think, actually has the toughest road to the Final Four because they play Stanford, and Stanford's always good. They got a great coach who's coached the Olympic team
right.
before, and just a wonderful coach out there, Trish Vanderveer, and Tara Vanderveer, and they've always been. We were looking at this today, and even the teams like Tennessee is a 7 seed. When you think of women's basketball,
Yeah.
probably the second thing you think of after UConn is Tennessee.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot of perennial powers here, even at a little bit of the lower seeds. And this has pretty much been chalk. The highest seed left on the women's side are the 7 seeds. The other thing that makes Notre Dame's road to the Final Four difficult, especially if Kentucky beats Washington on Sunday, on Friday, is that the Notre Dame Kentucky game will actually be in Lexington.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Yeah,
And we talked about that earlier. I don't know why they do it for the women, where they play. Virtually, UConn played in their home arena for the first 2 games.
Yeah, they played in Stores the first 2, and then the next 2 are in Bridgeport. So,
It doesn't make any sense.
although it isn't technically a home court, but
Yeah.
Connecticut's like that big,
Yeah.
so it's right
Yeah.
next door. No matter
Yeah.
where it is in Connecticut, it's right next door. So I've got the 4-1 seeds too. South Carolina versus Notre Dame and UConn versus Baylor in the national semifinals, and we'll talk about the Final Fours next week with Coach Graves from South Alabama. So as we get close to here, let's just wrap this up. I want to ask 3 questions of each of you guys. One is, who are you rooting for? We know who Ben's rooting for. 2 is, who do you think will win it all? And 3, which game this weekend are you most looking forward to? Ben, I'll start with you. It's going to be the same answer for all 3.
I'm rooting for Indiana. I do think, just based on the way they played, I think Kansas will end up winning the championship. And what was the third question?
What game are you most looking forward to?
The Indiana-North Carolina game, but I'm also looking forward to the Kansas-Maryland game. Like I said earlier, talent-wise, I think those teams are very close in talent, and that one could be. I could see Maryland pulling the upset there, but I have Kansas winning it all, so I'm going to pick Kansas though.
Okay.
I'm rooting for two teams, Kansas and North Carolina. I want to see Roy Williams against his former team that he coached. The most intriguing game to me is North Carolina, Indiana. I think that's going to be a great game. It could come down to the wire. I like Tom Green. I think he's done a great job there. And what was the last question?
Who do you think will win?
I think Kansas will win it all.
Okay. I'm rooting for Miami. I grew up in South Florida, and I was, I grew up in a period where they didn't have basketball. They had Rick Barry in the early '60s, who was a National Player of the Year and an All-American, and went on to win a world championship with the Golden State Warriors. But then they had no basketball program for like 25 years, and then they came back, and they've been getting better and better. And like we talked about before with Coach Larinaga, I don't think they'll win, but that's who I'm rooting for. I think Kansas is going to win. I think we're kind of unanimous on that. The game I'm actually looking the most forward to is kind of an if game because it's a Saturday game. I'd really like to see the Oregon-Oklahoma game. I think that'll be a up and down the court, lots of points. Hield might go for 40, and the freshman from Oregon might go for 42. So anyway, like I said earlier, next week we're fortunate enough to have Coach Graves from University of South Alabama, who will join us to talk about the real Final Four, not our imaginary ones. Although on the women's side, I think we'll probably be pretty close. Here at the Sports Academy, we affectionately call the women's tournament the UConn Invitational, and we'll see how that plays out. And so join us next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time when we'll talk Final Four basketball with Coach Graves from University of South Alabama. And everybody have a great week in sports.